Hi, this is Heather again, and this is probably my second testimony. And this one is about how sometimes life gets better and life is going really, really good. And you convince yourself that because you went through one hard thing, that you don't have to go through anything else that's hard. That you'll be able to live happily ever after for the rest of your life. And it's easy to think that. It's easy to think that once we've overcome one hard thing, that that's all we have to deal with. That we don't have to go through any more pain, and we don't have to go through any more sorrow, and that life is always going to be good. But that's not the case. I hate to tell you this, but sometimes when you get through the hard thing, a little later on, there's another hard thing. And then you have a choice to make. When you have found God and you formed a relationship with Him, sometimes you assume times are always going to be good. And they're not. After I had Tommy and lost him, I had other kids, and I used to call them my rainbow babies. Now, a rainbow baby is a baby that comes after a loss, but I considered Angel and Bree, my other kids, to be my rainbow babies because they came after my loss of Tommy. It was like a promise from God that it wouldn't happen again. And sure enough, it didn't, even though they never figured out exactly what caused the liver failure for Tommy at that time. I had Angel, and she was perfect, and I had Bree, and she was perfect, and then I had Julie. And Julie looked perfect too. But she had trouble gaining weight. And you can imagine how I felt, because that was Tommy's issue. So I took her to the doctor, and they told me it was because she was having difficulty breastfeeding. And so I took her to a speech therapist, which is actually supposed to help with that. And I remember walking into the appointment feeling relieved that, that she just had problems and that it wasn't what Tommy had. But then I remember the speech therapist looking at me, and she said, no, there's more going on here. And she listed all these symptoms like vomiting, digested food, and just different things that she noticed in Julie. And it didn't take long for her to list these things for me to notice that they were all the same symptoms as my son. All of them. And the poor lady there had no idea that she had just told me that my daughter had what killed my son, and we never figured out what that was. So how do you fight something when you don't even know what it is? It was like, give it a minute, the waves are coming in here because a boat went by. See? Pretty waves. But how do you fight something? Oh, look, another boat. I'm going to get out of the way so you can see it. If it goes by, hold on. It's beautiful. Come on, boat. Hey, can you see it yet? Nope. There it is. There it is. Beautiful, isn't it? I came here because I knew I was going to be telling sad stories, and I wanted to do it in a beautiful place. So, the waves are coming again now. See the pretty waves. I didn't realize it would be so noisy here. But anyways, you can imagine how that speech therapist felt after having just given me what was a death sentence for my child. She literally had to leave the room because I lost it. I lost it. And I must have cried for a good 20 minutes all alone in that room with my daughter. And then finally I looked down at her and I told myself, what kind of life would she live if I cried all the time? No matter how long I had her, I owed it to her that she didn't have a life filled with a crying mom. So by the time the speech therapist had come in and give me the information, I had calmed myself down enough. Julie was only about a year old at the time. A month old, excuse me. But she lived to almost 4 months. And then she died at Hoyt's Children's Hospital in Miami. And they were able to figure it out what it was afterwards. It was a mitochondrial depletion disorder of the MPV17 gene. It's extremely rare. And there had been nothing I could have done to save either of my kids. And that, I believe, was a blessing that God gave me, because He knew how much guilt that I felt and how bad I felt for what had happened, and how guilty how I tried to blame myself for it all. So I believe that He gave me that gift in the fact that it was something that I couldn't have fixed, no matter how hard I tried. But anyways, I was left after I lost Julie, and while I was going through the trial of taking care of Julie, knowing that God had allowed my worst trial to happen again. And let me tell you, that was hard. It was hard to maintain my faith in God when I felt I had been through enough pain and I didn't want to do it again. That's when you feel these feelings of it's not fair and why me, and you don't understand. But I think the key is just to understand that everything happens for a reason, and sometimes we don't understand that reason. I know that's cliche to say everything happens for a reason, but I've seen some of the reasons later on. Like on the back end, I've seen some of the changes that have occurred in people because of what happened, and how people have come to Christ because of the things that I've gone through, and how I've gotten through it. Again, it's just a temporary separation. How I miss my daughter as much as I miss my son, but I know I'm going to see them again. And it has increased my faith, the faith that I needed to go through the loss of my husband later on, the faith that I needed to pass on to my kids, the faith that I need on an everyday basis. Because I'll tell you what, we all need a strong faith, because even if you're not going through a hard trial, you're going through a little one, and sometimes the little ones are just as hard as the big ones, because when you have a day when you feel depressed, when you have a day when you feel lonely, when you have a day where you just don't know what to do, the only thing you can go do is go to God. Because some things we just can't fix on our own. And we try, but life only gets better when we give that control up to God. And so what I learned from the loss of Julie is that there's no guarantee that life is always going to be happy, but that doesn't mean that life has to be miserable. And it doesn't mean that God doesn't love us just because He puts us through another trial. Sometimes you learn, and this is what I learned with Julie, that sometimes you have to trust God no matter what the circumstances look like. That when you get that faith, sometimes He just wants to know that you're going to love Him no matter what the outcome is. And I'll tell you, it's hard. It's not easy. It's definitely hard, but when you learn to trust Him, life is better. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you learn to trust Him, life is better. And you will always have things in this life. You will always have your crosses to bear. And they will be different from anybody else's, but they will make you stronger if you let them. And they will help you affect others to the positive. They will help you love others. They have allowed me to gain a sense of empathy, especially having lost 2 kids, a sense of empathy for other people, a sense of love, a sense of compassion that, I'll be honest, I didn't have before. And I don't know if it's the connection to God or if it was the losses, but it meant something to me. It means something to me, and it means something to the people that God has allowed me to help. And hopefully this video will help others, because God really does love you, even when it feels like He doesn't. And I've been through the worst that you can go through. And if I can tell you that God loves you in the midst of your trial, you better believe it. Because I've learned that He does. I've learned that He does. And I'll tell you what, sometimes the fact that He loves me is the only thing that gets me through to the next day. And it's enough. So, take heart. God loves you. You will go through hard trials, and you will continue to go through hard trials, but it's okay, because God's there for you. And so are other people who have God in them. So, anyways, God bless you. This was my second testimony. I'll be filming more later, and have a good day.